So this is the video here. Needed a little E-invite for our upcoming series called Simply Rich.
Do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air, for they neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Now if God so clothes the grass of the field, will he not much more clothe you?
Beautiful. So there's a lot going on here. It seems pretty simple, but actually a lot of adjustments went into making this to be as simple as it appears. Right around the 30 second mark, 35 second mark, you'll see some of these birds.
Look at the birds of the...
So those birds, we'll look at those birds. There's also a butterfly down here a little bit later. Some color correction and whatnot. Okay, cool. So goodbye. Now I'm going to be a little transparent here and tell you that a lot of these elements I did not actually create myself. I just went to YouTube. This clip right here, green screen butterfly footage. There's a little butterfly. He just flies. He flies. Pretty neat, right? So it was already pre-animated on green. There's a lot of free resources on YouTube if you just search for it. I searched butterfly green screen, or you could search butterfly chroma, or you could search alpha butterfly, or you could search animated butterfly. You know, you never know what might come up. So I found that one. And then also on YouTube I found a hummingbird by the same artist that was offering some resources for free on the internet. So what's cool about these, they just kind of, they don't really move. They move a little bit in place, but as you'll see in our composition, we actually can animate the movement, the position keyframes for this hummingbird, and we can have it fly around. So that's fun. And then this footage was actually a relaxation video that I found on YouTube. Probably wasn't offering it for free, but I grabbed it anyway. Forgive me. I do think it's wrong, but I did it anyway. But it's green. And so I figured maybe I could do some color correction to it and make it seem a little bit more fall-y, because we are entering into the fall. It is October after all. Cool. So let's start there. Come up to our effects. You see what it did? Just a simple hue saturation, some color balance, and then that pretty much got it to where we wanted it to be. There's the end. If I take these off, you'll just see where it started. The hue saturation, I took the color wheel to about 327%. Didn't even need any colorization or saturation, nothing. Just to bring in some yellows. It's right in that range there. And then the color balance, I wanted to increase a lot of the reds, take out a lot of the greens, put some blues in there, and that's kind of nice. Gives you a little bit of a purpley, yellowy, orangey kind of tint. So much more fall colors. There's a very, very slight 3D effect on this entire composition. It's a technique I learned from a friend of mine, but it's common. You'll see it out there a lot, where you can actually make layers out of your picture. This is how you make still photos 3D, and actually, because the relaxation video was just a still. It was a video, but it was on a tripod. It didn't move. I wanted a slow movement, and to add to the video effect, I wanted it to be a little bit 3D as I pushed in. It's really, really slight, and you probably can't even notice it. But what you do, I took a mask. I'll expand these layers here. Hit M for mask. And you can see, isolate each one of these layers. So this one, it's hidden right now, but that's the mask I drew just using the pen tool up here. You can click, you can add mask, you can take away or add pen points. But that's that. I duplicated the layer again, deleted that mask, and created this mask. And so now the idea is that now you have this layer, this mask on top of the layer behind, and then you can move this forward in 3D space to give it the appearance. You can add a camera movement, and that'll give it the appearance of just a slight 3D effect. And so I added the background back in there too. Now what's tricky is that the background layer, because this layer here has these trees on the background layer, you have to mask them out. So this is the background layer, and of course all three of them together gives you an idea of what the original photo looked like, but just the background. You have to clone stamp behind, at least that's how I did it. Some pictures you might be able to use different tools, but if you double click, that'll bring you into an editing mode on that layer. And I took the clone stamp, which is up here, and that'll give you some brushes and some options and some tools. If you alt click, same as in Photoshop, if I want to cover up a tree, like say I want to cover up this tree with all these leaves, I just alt click over here, and then I click and paint, and wherever your crosshairs wind up is what you're painting. So I can even bring these leaves over here. I'm obviously going to undo this just to give you an idea. I'll undo that. So when the layer is 3D, what happens is, if I come back over to our composition, as we're scrolling through, if we did not delete these trees from the background, as we move forward with the camera movement, these trees will actually reveal the same tree behind it. So we don't need that now, do we? So we just deleted, clone stamped over the tree in the background. And my computer's a little slow, or else you could see the subtle movement. Maybe just keep your eye on, like watch this line as you watch the video back, and you'll see it slowly reveal just a few leaves behind it. And then this horizon right here, where all these leaves are, actually I think I did it along the rocks. You'll notice just a little bit of movement throughout here as this top layer comes forward. So the hummingbirds, like I said, it's already pre-animated, but we animated the positional keyframes. If I hit P, I can open up the position keyframes, and this is just a quick movement. I knew I wanted them to fly through because it still looks kind of like a cartoon. So you can barely see them here. Let's go to full resolution and wait for it and wait for it. But I wanted to make it realistic a little bit just by adding a drop shadow, or not a drop shadow, excuse me, motion blur. This is how you add the motion blur, that right there, and then of course make sure your motion blur is on for your entire composition. And then as he flies through, I did also a little bit of color correction on this guy as well. Just took some of the levels down because he was really popping. I wanted him to blend a little bit better. See, he's a little bit bright. So obviously he's in the middle of the forest. It's shady in there. And not just scary shady, but shady from the trees. And then this key light is my keying function. After Effects is great with key light, so you can kind of get an idea. I also scaled it. My mouse is bouncing around here. What fun. So that's the green there, and with key light you can select the green color you want to key out with the eyedrop tool, and then of course there are some other options that you can adjust to get your perfect key. So with the key light activated again, boink, and then your bird is just there. So I duplicated this once I animated him, and then I had a new layer that I just manipulated the path. You can, once you have it mapped out, you can take these points and you can kind of move them around, use the pen tool to manipulate them. Another thing I did, not just the positional keyframe, but I also changed the rotation. So if I hit R, that'll bring up rotation, and you'll kind of see. So just as Shift P will also bring up the positional keyframes for that layer. So as it moves through, I also tried to manipulate the rotation of the bird so it would follow and face forward along the path that we created for it. With the butterfly, the green screen butterfly footage, did the same thing, just created a path. It was already animated, so I manipulated the position, hitting P, and Shift R will bring up the rotation as well, or the orientation, and I had it fly up and out of the screen. This Simply Rich logo at the end I received from our graphic designer. That was from him, so I plopped that in there. That's an Illustrator file, which means it's vector based. I just did a slow zoom on that. The information at the end that pops up, a series on God and money. I just had Simply Rich fade out and that fade in with an opacity keyframe. If you hit T, it brings up your opacity, and there it is, came from 0 to 100. And then of course on your other layer, if you hit T, there's your opacity keyframes. And then there was a slow camera movement across the whole thing. All my layers were 3D, so any 3D layer will be influenced by a camera tracking. I created a null object to tie my camera to. Sometimes it just gives you better control of your camera. Null can be found in layer, new, null object, and then I simply make the null object a 3D layer, use the pick whip tool to tie my camera to my null, and then I can change all my positional keyframes within the null. And so here is a simple z-axis positional keyframe movement. It starts here and then slowly zooms in, and there's a nice easy ease, so it eases into a stopping point at the same time as our Simply Rich text gets to full opacity. And that's pretty much it. The music track, we use a library called firstcom.com. I found that track on there. We do pay for our music library, and also the voiceover was from my good friend Johnny Cash. He came into our studio, came back from the dead, and did a great recording. I posted it on YouTube for you. You can find it out there. Just search New Testament Reading by Johnny Cash. Thanks! Hope you weren't too bored. This was fun.